Ladies and gentlemen, respected dignitaries, and fellow panelists, I wish you all a very good morning. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be part of this elite panel. Uh, since we're running out of time, I'll try and keep my conversation short. But of course, we can't begin a conversation without reference to the pledges taken by this country and our Honorable Prime Minister at the COP27. As was already mentioned earlier, the targets are stiff. We intend increasing the capacity of renewable energy in the country to 50% level by 2030. The idea is to reduce the carbon emissions by 45% level by 2030 and continue to meet the target set in COP26 to be net zero by 2070. And parallelly also, prioritize energy and food security. So while these are the pledges taken by the country, and I'm sure each citizen today realizes the need to make our planet Earth sustainable and take every action in that direction. And while there is a lot of conversation at the COP27 discussions where the so-called developed countries have to support the developing countries in terms of financing their initiatives to do whatever towards the green energy goal that the world has. But we as Indians, let's own it up. The fact still remains that despite us being amongst the lower emitters on a per capita basis, we still are the third most emitting country in the world when it comes to GHG. And it's most critical that we take the initiatives to set the ball rolling in terms of technologies, in terms of areas that we need to focus on, and have a concrete plan which can be implemented, which probably gives the confidence for the rest of the world to sort of believe on the initiatives and offer the sought financial support that the country is seeking, like most other developing countries. I think just to put things in perspective, the key industries which are contributing the most towards the GHG, accounting for almost 70% share, is power, steel, automotive, aviation, cement, and agriculture. And considering that we are a growing nation and we are growing at a pace which is, the GDP growth is highest today in the world, and hopefully it will continue to remain at that level. We are expected to grow the infrastructure to at least 4 times, by 2050, and maybe 5 or 6 times by 2070. And in the process, all of these industries that we spoke of are going to grow, and they're going to grow many-fold. Be it power, potentially 8-fold. Steel, unless we find a substitute for this brilliant metal which has served mankind for over centuries, that is expected to grow 8-fold as well. Cement, 3-fold. Auto industries are going to grow 3 times or 3-fold. And food production, at least 2 times of where we are today. So unless we take serious action and make each of these fields build low carbon capabilities in each of these fields, quite honestly, it's an understatement to say that we are headed for disaster. So there is dire need to take action at every individual level, at every government level, at the corporate levels, and there is no alternative to that. So from these industries, let's take power, because that is somehow involved in all of the other industries, and that is one region, one aspect or one vertical which is creating the most damage to the earth. So while there is a clear direction and intent from various stakeholders in terms of making most of the power production green, and hence it has to be renewable, we as a country cannot avoid producing power through coal and hydro. And while we believe hydro is renewable, but let's face it, any large hydro has got its own drawbacks. I mean, it submerges huge extents of land. It impacts the lifestyle of the local stakeholders. And in the initial phases, which probably not many of us realize, is that it actually submerges a lot of vegetation. And that in turn produces methane. And methane is 25 times more powerful as compared to CO2 in terms of the heat trapping character. So considering that we cannot avoid these and we cannot simply replace this overnight by something which is sustainable and renewable, it puts the additional emphasis on the urgency to have a sharp increase in the capacities for the renewable energy, be it solar, be it wind, be it geothermal, be it biomass. I think we need to really accelerate the growth in all of these phases. And I see a lot of positive movement in that direction. Starting with the government, I think the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji is probably one of the most visionary leaders that this world has ever seen. And I think the world acknowledges that. And be it Atmanirbhar, be it, the various PLI schemes that he's brought up, the production-linked incentives for solar industry, for advanced chemistry cells manufacturing, for various other industries, which are all going to, in some way or the other, contribute towards a target of green energy. That is a huge benefit that each of these industries or verticals, get. And effectively, industries like solar panel manufacturing are expected to grow tenfold in a matter of 3 years from now, making us the second largest solar panel producer in the world after China. And similarly, there is a great initiative taken on localizing cell manufacture, localizing equipment for producing green hydrogen, etc. All of these things put together, the initiative by the government, the interest taken by the industry, to focus on technologies on onshore wind, offshore wind, solar, storage, P2X, which is power to X, is basically producing green hydrogen and green ammonia, and the fact that the industry, which is a combination of the leading Indian industry houses, the IPPs, which are funded by private equity setups from all over the world, the Indian power utility companies or power producing companies, be it private or government, multinational power utility companies, all of them are present in India, ready to deploy the capital. And it's no understatement when I say that there are at least 25 such companies who individually have the intent and the capital lined up to produce more than 1 gigawatt of renewable energy per annum. So today we have everything that it takes to add 25 gigawatt of renewable energy in the country. So, and I would say that all of these things put together, the fact that the wind and solar have already reached grid parity, and in fact they become substantially cheaper than the average power procurement cost world over. And we have really reached a point of inflection. And from here on, there is only one way to go, which is to progress well and achieve the targets. And that's a very great position to be in. And I think, but we need to jointly resolve 2 or 3 critical concerns. That is the availability of power evacuation and land. And I'm sure there are people who realize what it takes, but we need to have certain policies in place to make sure that there is prioritization given for land for renewable energy. And we need to call for much more number of auctions for setting up grid substations at places where there is potential for producing green power, which is wind and solar. These are very, very critical. And I know I'm running out of time, I'm sorry. But one last piece is that the industry should also look at offtake arrangements which are not entirely dependent on the grid, and forming power islands to generate green hydrogen and green ammonia is one thing which would really help in multiple ways. It produces what is the need of the hour. It doesn't hamper the grid. It doesn't draw power from the grid. Rather, it complements. You have a connectivity with the grid, and as and when the industry, the grid requires power, it can actually pump back. So I think that's one area which we need to follow, which has already taken off in the Middle East and North Africa in a big way, and we need to follow that. So I'll conclude my talk here and let the other panelists take over, please. Thank you so much.